Good afternoon, and welcome to the first meeting of the hardest working interim committee of the Nevada State Legislature, the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Government Affairs for the 2023-2024 interim for the first time this year. Thanks to everyone who's joining us online and in person. We appreciate your participation. Ms. Velasquez, please call the roll.
Senator Daly.
Here.
Senator Flores.
Present.
Senator Hansen.
Here.
Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblyman Koenig.
Here.
Assemblyman MacArthur.
Here.
Chair Torres.
Here. Thank you, and it's good to see everybody here in Southern Nevada, as well as those joining us in Northern Nevada today. I have to reverse the script in my head. Before we get into committee introductions, I would like to review a few housekeeping bits of information. Meeting materials can be accessed on the committee's webpage located on the Nevada Legislature's website. Anyone who would like to review electronic notification of and access to the committee agenda, minutes, and final report can do so by signing up on the legislature's website. When testifying in person, please turn the microphones on to speak and speak directly into the microphone. Please turn off the microphone each time that you are done speaking. There will be a public comment period at the beginning and end of the meeting. The public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per speaker. In addition to testifying in person, public comment may be provided in 4 different ways, all of which are listed on the agenda. Those methods include calling in at 888-475-4499, then entering the meeting ID 886-2753-6292 and pressing pound. You can also email gainterim@lcb.state.nv for nevada.us, mailing written comments to the Research Division at 401 South Carson Street, Carson City, Nevada 89701, or by sending a fax to 775-684-6400. So there's a lot of ways to get a hold of us. I know that Assemblyman MacArthur generally prefers mail, so he said some of his comments via mail this afternoon, and I look forward to reading those. With that, let's go ahead and get started. First, I would like to have the committee members introduce themselves and describe their interest in serving on the committee. I'll go ahead and start with our Vice Chair, Assemblyman Flores.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to be here with our amazing staff who are the real magic behind this committee, and it's an honor to serve along you, Madam Chair. I haven't had an opportunity to sit alongside of you chairing the committee, but I see the amazing work you do every morning, so I appreciate that. With everybody else, I look forward to working with you all in the interim. Hopefully we can come up with some great work that we can present during the upcoming legislative session. And I've had now the honor to sit on this committee since 2015, so it's just a pleasure to be here again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Flores, for always finding a way to make very brief remarks. Let's go ahead and go up to Northern Nevada, and we'll go ahead and start with Senator Skip Daly and then move on to Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Vice Chair is Senator Flores. Freudian slip, I'm assuming, when you called him Assemblyman. But anyway, my name is Skip Daly, representing Senate District 13. I've served on government affairs both in the Assembly and the Senate a couple of different times. Was my main focus when I lobbied back in the day for the Laborers Union. So a lot of experience and knowledge. Looking forward to the interims. First time I've been on the interim government affairs, now under the new structure with standing committees reflecting the policy committees during session. So happy to be here. Looking forward to our work, and hopefully we can have a productive interim.
Senator Ira Hansen, representing District 14. I served in 7 legislative sessions now. Only one time was on government affairs, as I recall. I'm trying to remember all the committees I've served on. So the whole interim concept's a little bit new. I've served on the Legislative Commission most of the time I've been in the legislature. But this is the first standing committee. Served with public lands and some other smaller ones, but this is the first standing committee since the law passed in 2021 session. So I'm looking forward to learning more. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And while we're up north, let's go ahead and go to Assemblyman Koenig.
Thank you. I'm kind of sitting at the end where I'm not on the camera, so that's kind of actually nice. I'm looking forward to this. I served on the Committee for Government Affairs during the session. Chair Torres was probably my favorite chair, and I really enjoyed the way she ran the meetings and look forward to doing this again. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with some of my past experiences. Being on the county commission, being a county commissioner, I think that kind of dovetails into government affairs. So looking forward to it, and I'm glad I'm here. Thanks.
Thank you. And Assemblyman Carter.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Assemblyman Max Carter. I'm from Assembly District 12, which is the base of Sunrise Mountain. I've been a lifelong East Sider, and my interest on the Government Affairs Committee is the fact that, yes, we were the hardest working committee in the last legislative session, but I also see how the work that we do on this committee dovetails directly into what I've always believed, and that's service to your community.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Assemblyman Ruben De Silva. I represent Assembly District 28. Senator Flores' old district. I'm proud to be following in his footsteps. I work at Rancho High School, which is a school, I think, within view of this window that we have in front of us. And I must say thank you, Madam Chair, as I've already thanked you earlier today for having this late start so we can actually get some teaching done before serving with our legislative duties here. My real interest in government affairs is the fact that it's such an encompassing committee. There's so many jurisdictions, and I have a special interest in intergovernmental sort of relationships, and this is the committee to do it. And along with being the hardest working committee, I also have some of the coolest fellow legislators to serve alongside this committee, so I'm looking forward to the work at hand. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Assemblywoman Selena Torres, and I proudly represent Assembly District 3 right here in the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada. This is my third interim period and my second time sitting on the interim GA committee. I did have the pleasure of serving on it last time as well. I also served as chair during the legislative session where I had the opportunity to work with some phenomenal people, and many of them are here in the room here in Southern Nevada as well, some of the great representatives and government affairs folk from our local government. So it's great to see so many familiar faces, as well as the amazing staff, some of which are down here in Southern Nevada with us today, as well as those that are joining us in Northern Nevada. It's exciting to see so many familiar faces that I know are truly committed to making sure that we are continuing to make government accessible and that government continues to work for the people that it represents. With that, I would like to introduce the Legislative Council Bureau staff who will be assisting us this interim. We do have the opportunity to always pass it to them, but I will tell you that our staff generally prefer for us to just go ahead and introduce them, and they definitely deserve an introduction. So the first staff members I would like to introduce is Jared McDonald, who is here with us in Southern Nevada, and Jennifer Rudy, who is with us in Northern Nevada. They will both serve as our committee policy analysts, and they will assist us with background information on and research into the issues that come before the committee. We also have with us Alberto Quintero, who is sitting with us today here in Southern Nevada. Alberto is a senior policy analyst with the research division who is located right here in Las Vegas. Additionally, we have Heidi Charlerson and Jamie Black, who will serve as our committee legal counsel. Finally, our research policy assistant is Maria Velasquez. She will prepare the meeting minutes and will assist us with a variety of other tasks as they come up. And she's up with us in Northern Nevada. I was just confirming. I was like, I hadn't seen her yet, but she's definitely with us in Northern Nevada. Next, we'll move on to agenda item number 2, which is public comment. Our next agenda item is public comment. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Staff will time each speaker during public comment to ensure everyone is given a fair opportunity to speak. An additional opportunity to make public comment will be available at the end of the meeting. Is there anyone here in Las Vegas wishing to testify in public comment, or in Northern Nevada wishing to testify in public comment? I do not see anyone at this time. Is there anyone on the phones wishing to testify in public comment?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
All right. There's always another opportunity for the public to come and testify at the end of this meeting. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 3, which is the presentation of committee brief and recap of government affairs legislation from the 2023 session. We'll now go to the presentation of the committee brief and recap of the last session with Mr. McDonald. Please proceed when you're ready. Actually, very briefly, I made a grave error, and that was in the introduction. And with that, it was that I forgot to introduce my best friend, Assemblyman Richard MacArthur, who almost needs no introduction, which is why he was skipped. Assemblyman MacArthur, you want to go ahead and give a little bit about why you're on this committee and your commitment to serving in GA?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't know we were talking today. My name's Richard MacArthur. I've been in the Assembly for 5 sessions now. And I do like this particular committee. We do a lot of things that are interesting, things that we can help the state with. And so this is one of the committees I try to get on every single session. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to wind up doing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman MacArthur. And just so that the public is aware, we are resuming MacArthur Minute. So at the end of this meeting, we will have opportunity for a MacArthur Minute and just hear about what he's been up to over the last 6 months since we were last in Carson City. But with that, we'll go ahead and go back to agenda item number 3. Mr. McDonald, please proceed with the presentation of the committee brief and recap of government affairs legislation from last session when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. This is Jared McDonald for the record. I'm a policy analyst with the Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. And really briefly, we're going to go over the committee brief, which is located on the back table and also on our website for anybody who would like to download that. The committee, the brief provides information on the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Government Affairs, including an overview of the committee's powers and duties, a work plan and jurisdiction, and relevant reports and publications, among other things. The powers and duties of this committee were created with the passage of Assembly Bill 443 in 2021, as codified in NRS 218E 330. The committee may evaluate and review issues within the jurisdiction of the corresponding standing committee or committees from the preceding regular session of the legislature, may exercise any of the investigative powers set forth in NRS 218E 105 to 218E 140, and within the limits of the committee's budget, conduct studies directed by the legislature or legislative commission. And finally, the committee may request up to 10 bill drafts this interim. And I would note that at this point, I would usually review bill drafts from last interim, but no bill drafts were submitted from this committee last interim. Next is the work plan. The budget approved by the Legislative Commission allows the committee to conduct up to 6 hearings throughout the interim, and those hearings must conclude by August 31st, 2024, at which point the committee needs to submit those 10 BDRs. We do have a list of tentative and confirmed tentative dates for future meetings. Those dates include February 22nd, April 12th, May 8th, June 10th, and August 23rd. The committee generally has jurisdiction over a wide range of issues affecting state and local government. Some of those topics include cities, counties, and general improvement districts, cooperative agreements, homeland security, housing authorities, public officers and employees, public works, open meeting law, state and local government, financial administration, and many, many others. A variety of reports are available regarding government affairs issues in Nevada on the legislative website. These publications can be found at the link that is in the document that you should be able to link to. And then also paper copies are available upon request. As I'm sure you know, the legislature requires various state and local entities to provide reports to the legislature, legislative commission, the IFC, and other legislative committees. And a complete report of those reports is, again, located on the legislative website. And if you have an electronic version of this, you can link directly to that. Based on the research we did, we found just 2 reports that were directly required to report to this committee. The first is pursuant to NRS 459.0094. This is a report from the Agency for Nuclear Projects. They must report a summary of their status, of their activities to not only this committee, but also the Interim Standing Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, Health and Human Services, and Natural Resources. The second was approved with the passage of Assembly Bill 143 just this last session. This report requires Story County to report the number of conveyances of real property initiated or completed as outlined in the bill on or before July 1st of this year. So we should expect to see something later on, closer as we get to July 1st. On the back page of the brief, we have list and contact information for all the committee staff, so feel free to contact us if you need anything. And then finally, the research division is available to assist the committee and its members on any issue related to matters before the committee. In addition, research staff provides individual members of the legislature information and assistance on a confidential basis on any topic. So if you need to reach us, please contact us at the phone number listed or at our email address at research@lcb.state.nv.us. That concludes my brief overview of the committee brief. And next, I'll just move into a recap of legislation from last session. I did a little bit of a scorecard just to give you an idea of how much work you did. I'm sure you all remember putting a lot of effort into a lot of these bills. Just, again, a little bit of a scorecard. Senate Committee on Government Affairs was referred 114 bills last session. And the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs was issued 110. Of the 114 that were referred to Senate Government Affairs, 91 were passed out. Assembly Government Affairs passed out 87. Of the 91 passed out of Senate Government Affairs, 76 went to the governor. Of the 87 passed by Assembly Government Affairs, 75 went to the governor. Of the 76 that went to the governor, of those Senate bills, 18 were vetoed. Of the 87 Assembly Government Affairs passed out, 75, again, 75 were passed and then 16 were vetoed. So the final tally was of the 114 referred to Senate Government Affairs, 58 or 51% of those bills did become law. And for Assembly Government Affairs, of the 110 that referred to the committee, 59 or 54% became law. A summary of all the bills.
Mr. McDonald, so are you saying that the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs was just slightly more effective at passing legislation?
I'll let you be the judge of that, but it appears that Senate Government Affairs was referred about 4 more bills, and 58 of those became law, and then Assembly Government Affairs was referred 110, and 59 were passed, so possibly just by 1. A summary of all these bills that were passed out of both houses that became law and or were vetoed can be found in your packets and also in the summary of legislation located on the legislative website. In your packet today, we've included a subset of the summary of legislation. So these bills that we included are what we categorized as state and local government. So just kind of to review your memory, or just to so that you remember what some of the bills that you had passed last session, We've also included a summary of the bills passed out of the GA committees that were vetoed, and that's about the last couple pages of that document. So that concludes my overview or recap of legislation from last session. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? And I'll go first to Northern Nevada. Are there any questions? It does not appear so. If so, please just unmute. No. Southern Nevada, are there any questions? It doesn't appear there are any. Mr. MacArthur, I'm sorry, did you have a question, Assemblyman? No. Oh, he said he's fine now. All right, thank you. At this time, we will go ahead and proceed with agenda item number 4, the overview of language access laws in Nevada and other states. When you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Again, for the record, I'm Jared McDonald. I'm a policy analyst with the Research Division of the Legislative Counsel Bureau, and I'm going to provide a presentation on language access laws. Though before I start, I'd like to remind the committee and anyone watching that as a member of the Research Division, I serve in a nonpartisan capacity and can neither advocate nor oppose any legislation that comes before the committee. I'd also note that as a member of the Research Division, I cannot provide legal counsel or advice, and that any of the information presented today should not be construed as legal interpretation or opinion. So here's a general look at the topics of discussion. We're going to take a look at general overview and background of language access laws, examples of language access laws in other states, and then we're going to take a look at a few laws in this state, in Nevada. This presentation has been tailored to cover laws that are generally within the purview of this committee's jurisdiction. The issue of language access is quite broad and touches many aspects of private and public sector activities, including like employment law, healthcare, the legal system, and many others. So what I'm going to discuss today is largely affects state and local government and their responsibilities concerning language access. So research on this topic indicated to me that many language access laws and policies are grounded in Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, certain other acts and Supreme Court rulings, and Executive Order 13166. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits recipients of federal financial assistance from discriminating based on race, color, or national origin. The law states no person in the United States shall, on the ground of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. The application of Title VI extends to providing meaningful access to individuals who have limited English proficiency as languages are related to national origin. Seeing a need possibly to clarify this law, in the year 2000, President Bill Clinton signed Executive Order 13166, improving access to services for persons with limited English proficiency to federal agencies. The executive order required all federal agencies to establish guidelines on providing meaningful access to LEP individuals in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and to discuss guidelines to recipients of their funding to clarify that what they must do to provide meaningful access to LEP persons. Although these measures create a basic right and framework for language access, they are limited that they only apply to federally funded programs. In response to the practical need for state and local governments to communicate with their constituencies, many state and local government entities have implemented laws and policies to effectively communicate in contexts related to public health, public safety, and promoting available services. Many state and local governments face a broad range of settings in which they directly serve residents with limited English proficiency. Many jurisdictions have created their own laws and policies to better foster and govern language access across the public services they provide. These laws and policies share many common features that can provide a framework for language access. While these laws and policies often take cues from federal guidance on language access, they also contain many unique and innovative elements necessary to ensure language access in day-to-day functions. According to information developed by the Migration Policy Institute, the following are a set of features shared by many language access laws, and those include identification of affected agencies, which can include those government agencies specifically named in the law, to a subset of those serving the public, to all agencies within a government. Many language access laws require agencies to translate documents into one or more languages. Some laws and policies explicitly state the number of languages or which specific languages documents must be translated into, depending on the size and characteristics of local LEP populations. Many language access laws require agencies to provide in-person or remote interpretation services for LEP individuals and may also provide guidance or regulations on the use of bilingual staff, professional interpreters, and volunteers. Policies regarding accuracy and services ensure accurate interpretation and translation services by requiring services to be provided by qualified individuals. And many of these programs require staff training and professional development on topics such as agency language access responsibilities and cultural and linguistic competency. For the purpose of public awareness, many language access laws require some sort of advertisement of language access services offered by an agency through posting signage in public places or on websites and developing outreach initiatives. Designation and recruitment of agency personnel to supervise language access can expand agency capacity by creating designated positions such as language access coordinators to support and oversee law policy implementation on an agency level. Implementation plans require agencies to document how they will provide meaningful language access and meet the provisions of the law or policy. This documentation is generally achieved through language access plans, and there is often a requirement to update these plans on a regular basis. Agency oversight authorizes a particular department, office, entity, or individual with overseeing agency's implementation of language access services. And advisory councils and technical assistance bodies typically support agencies in implementing language access services by providing technical assistance, advice on implementation, and or sharing feedback regarding quality of services. Accountability mechanisms help to ensure compliance with language access regulations. Common mechanisms include annual compliance plans, reports to the legislature, or complaint procedures that allow LEP individuals to file complaints that agencies must respond to. And then data and population tracking requires agencies to monitor the use of services and growth of LEP populations in their communities in an effort to detect emerging and or growing language access needs. In many cases, tracking LEP populations tend to include the use of census data or data on the people actually using the agency services. And then finally, devoting necessary resources addresses issues of financial capacity to provide language access services. Some laws and policies may require agencies to allocate funding, use standard rates of compensation for interpretation and translation, or track expenditures. As you will see, as many states and local governments have incorporated a number of these key aspects in their language access laws, including Nevada's, and sometimes some of the states do things a little bit different or in a unique way. So next I'm going to review some short summaries of some of the laws that some of the other states and local governments have implemented, kind of for comparison purposes, and then we'll talk a little bit about Nevada laws. Starting with the state of New York, Chapter 18, Article 10, subsection 202A was passed in July of 2022. This law requires each state agency that provides direct public services in New York State to translate all vital documents relevant to services offered by the agency into the 12 most common non-English languages spoken by limited English proficient individuals in the state, based on data in the most recent American Community Survey published by the U.S. Census Bureau. And then each state agency must designate a language access coordinator to ensure compliance. And subject agencies must develop language access plans and update those every 2 years. That's similar to Nevada's, I believe. Agencies must provide interpretation services between the agency and an individual primary language with respect to the provision of services or benefits by the agency. Another example is the city of Albuquerque. Their resolution R-2022-006 was passed in December of 2021. Their resolution requires each city department to develop a language access plan. And then starting in fiscal year 2023, each department must propose an annual budget to cover the costs associated with implementing the plan. And each department must designate a language access coordinator and translate and maintain copies of all vital documents. Next is New York City, Local Law 30. This was passed in 2017, and it requires every covered agency to develop a language access implementation plan and provide language access services for all designated city languages. Those services include identifying and translating documents most commonly distributed to the public that contain or elicit important and necessary information regarding the provision of basic services, providing interpretation and services through telephonic interpretation, and then posting of multilingual signage in conspicuous places of locations about the availability of free interpretation services. Next is Boston, Massachusetts. This is Ordinance 2016. It requires the City of Boston, through its department, to implement a communications access policy for residents who have a disability, who are English language learners or limited English speakers. This ordinance also requires each department to present a customized communications access plan to an oversight committee composed of representatives from the Mayor's Office of New Bostonians, the Mayor's Commission for Persons with Disabilities, and other agencies. This oversight committee serves the centralized enforcement entity for the Communications Access Ordinance. And then each department must undergo an annual review to evaluate their expenses, performance, and frequency of service delivered to LEP residents and residents with disabilities. Next is San Francisco. They have Ordinance 27-15, language access requirements for departments. They require their city and county departments to provide their services in English and in languages spoken by substantial populations of LEP-speaking persons in the city. They require their departments to designate a language access liaison, develop, adopt, and implement a department-specific language access policy, coordinate their language services, determine a budget for their department needs, and provide residents with a way to report failures in providing language access. Next is Hawaii. Their language access law, Chapter 321C, applies to state agencies and covered entities that receive state funding and provide services to the public. Their law requires each agency and covered entities to establish, again, a language access plan, take steps to ensure meaningful access to LEP persons, provide oral interpretation services that are competent and timely, provide written translation in vital documents. This bill also established the Office of Language Access to ensure compliance with the law and to provide technical assistance, and also established the Language Access Advisory Council to advise on implementation. In Maryland, they have State Code Section 10-1103. This requires most state agencies to provide free interpreter services and requires agencies to provide translation if a language is spoken by 3% or more of the population served by the agency. There's also Washington, D.C.'s Language Access Act of 2004. This requires district programs, departments, and services to assess for the need and offer oral language services, requires written translation of documents into any non-English language spoken by a limited or non-English proficient population that constitutes 3% or 500 individuals, which is ever is less of the population served. So they have a little bit different threshold on, what language they're going to provide their documents in. Their law also ensures the district government programs, departments, and services with major public contact, establish and implement a language access plan, and designate a language access coordinator, and require the Office of Human Rights to coordinate and supervise district government programs, departments, and services in complying with the Act. I think one of the oldest ones that I came across was the California Damali Aleatory Bilingual Services Act of 1973, so this one's over 50 years old. It requires departments to explain or translate information and services to the public in any language spoken by 5% or more of those served. And if any individual believes they have not been provided with the requested information or services, they can file a language access complaint. The last two states I was going to cover are New Jersey and Michigan. These bills were just passed this last year in 2023. New Jersey Senate Bill 2459, it requires state government entities in the executive branch that provide direct services to the public to translate vital documents and information in at least 7 most common non-English spoken languages by individuals with limited English proficiency. Again, based on U.S. Census Bureau data, requires each state agency to develop and publish a language access plan. The bill directs the Commissioner of Human Services, Attorney General, and Chief Technology Officer to provide guidance to the heads of state government entities and the respective language access coordinators. And then finally, their law is very clear about filing complaints if there's a failure to comply. Provisions of the bill do not arise to the right of an action against the state or government entity. The next one and last state I was going to talk about before I start talking a little bit about Nevada is Michigan. Just this last year, they passed 2 laws related to language access. The first is meaningful language access to state services. Under this law, each covered entity must take reasonable steps to provide free and meaningful language access to public services for individuals with limited proficiency. And each covered entity within the state government must develop and submit a report with information and plans concerning implementation and meaningful language access, and update that not less than every 2 years. The second measure they passed is the statewide Meaningful Language Access Coordination Act, and I think this is where they provide a little bit more oversight. They have a central agency, the Office of Global Michigan. This office must coordinate steps taken by state agencies to implement meaningful language access, designate at least one liaison, and create a complaint form and process. And it provides that any individual who believes they were denied full or equal access to a covered entity because of their national origin has a right to separately seek a remedy within the Department of Civil Rights within their state government. Next, I was going to talk a little bit about some Nevada laws, and for this I was going to start by highlighting a couple of measures that seem to conform with the intent of some of the language access concepts that we've discussed. One is related to the judicial system and has been in effect for nearly 30 years, and the other is related to elections and was passed by the legislature just this last year, though it was later vetoed by the governor. Again, this is, so the first one is the Nevada Certified Court Interpreter Program. This is codified in NRS 1.5 to 1.57 and was passed in 1995 through the passage of Senate Bill 329. Under the court, again, this established the Nevada Certified Court Interpreter Program and charged the state court administrator with establishing a program for the certification of court interpreters or witnesses, defendants, and litigants who speak a language other than English and do not know the English language. Created the Advisory Committee for Certified Court Interpreter Program to advise the state court administrator regarding regulations related to certification. This language access plan had 3 primary purposes. Those were to provide guidance for the consistent application of policies and practices throughout the Nevada court system, to provide the basis for training of judicial employees and staff to engage in limited English proficient individuals, and to inform LEP individuals about available language access resources. And again, this is a measure that incorporates a lot of the common aspects of language access programs that, again, we discussed earlier. The next bill I was going to talk about, again, hits on a lot of these, and this was Assembly Bill 246. This bill would have required the Secretary of State and county and city clerks to provide certain voting materials as defined in the bill in the language of a limited English proficient minority group if upon review of certain data by the Secretary of State, the minority group meets a specified population threshold. It required the Secretary of State and authorizes county clerks to establish a toll-free telephone number for language interpretation and translation assistance in relation to elections, and required the county and city clerks to make good effort to appoint bilingual election board officers. The bill also changes, or would have changed, the voter registration forms to allow for the collection of certain information, including whether an elector would like to receive a sample ballot in a language other than English. And it also would have created the Language Access Advisory Committee within the Secretary of State's office to, among other things, identify programs and services that address issues related to language accessibility of elections and voting materials, and assesses whether any such programs or services could be implemented in Nevada. But again, that bill was vetoed. The next bill I was going to talk about is Senate Bill 318 from 2001. This is codified in NRS 232.001.081, and it requires each agency in the Executive Department of State Government to develop and biennially revise a language access plan that includes information related to existing services available to individuals with limited access proficiency and recommendations for meeting the need for such services among those served by the agency. The next bill is Assembly Bill 266. This was passed just this last session. This bill requires each board of county commissioners and governing body of a city to develop a language access plan and revise it every 2 years. Requires the Board of County Commissioners in a county whose population is 100,000 or more, so Clark and Washoe, and then the governing bodies of the cities within those counties that have a population over 25,000 to ensure that certain public notices are issued in other languages, and that provision became effective on January 1st, so just earlier this month. It also requires the Office of New Americans to employ a language access coordinator to perform certain duties related to language interpreters, translators, and language access plans. The provisions of these bills also create a lot of new duties for the Office of New Americans, and those include coordinate with each governing body required to create a language access plan, provide oversight, central coordination, consultation, and technical assistance to any state agency, Board of County Commissioners, and governing body of a city in the implementation of their language access plans. Provide any state agency, Board of County Commissioners, and governing body of a city with a policy manual containing baseline policies and procedures for compliance with language access requirements. ONA, as they're called, also must maintain a publicly available roster of language interpreters and translators in positions that regularly have contact with the public and the languages each interpreter or translator speaks. Some additional duties were to train state agencies, boards of county commissioners, and governing bodies of a city to effectively recruit and retain interpreters and translators, receive and investigate complaints related to language access against any state agency, county commission, or governing body of a city. And they must also implement an annual budget and procurement strategy for expenses related to state language access plans. And finally, ONA must provide any local government with demographical information of persons with limited English proficiency or constituents to the local government. And again, here you can see where a lot of those concepts in the language access frameworks that some that we reviewed at the beginning that a lot of states are implementing were also implemented in the passage of AB 266. The final bill we're going to discuss is Assembly Bill 480. And this appropriated $25 million from the State General Fund to the IFC for allocation in fiscal year 24-25 to executive branch agencies for the implementation of language access plans as required by the law. And any remaining balance must go back to the State General Fund. And we did have a chance to reach out to our fiscal division regarding requests for funding from this bill. And as of December 13th, 2023, IFC had not received any requests for funding. However, there has been one request made that will be on the agenda for IFC on February 8th next month. The Department of Wildlife has requested an allocation of $200,431 to fund their department's language access plan. So that's the only request that we are aware of at this point. So that concludes my prepared remarks concerning language access laws and plans in Nevada and other states. We do have ONA on hand to discuss implementation of these bills, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. At this time, are there any questions up in Northern Nevada? Seeing none or hearing none, are there any down here in Southern Nevada? It doesn't appear that there are any at this time. I think that was a very thorough presentation. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. At this time, we will go ahead and go to the next item on our agenda, the presentation on the agenda item number 5, the presentation on the activities of the Governor's Office for New Americans, or ONA, and the implementation of language access legislation. Under agenda item 5, we are going to receive a presentation from the Governor's Office of New Americans. I would like to invite Ms. Ramos-Jones and Mr. Nava to the witness table to begin, and please begin when you are ready. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be in here with you guys. I am Iris Ramos-Jones. I am a first-generation immigrant from Ecuador. I came to the U.S. 10 years ago and became a naturalized citizen 5 years ago. I have been the director of ONA since September 11th, 2023, 4 months. I want to start first by sharing with you the journey of an immigrant is a remarkable and profound one, marked by courage and the pursuit of a better life. I have experienced firsthand the trials and tribulations that come with leaving one's homeland. It is a great honor for me to be here today and to be part of Governor Joe Lombardo's cabinet. His commitment to ensuring that our newest Nevadans feel prepared and welcomed in the great state of Nevada is truly inspiring. Also, as somebody who came to the United States without being able to speak the language, I want to thank to each person who was part of the approval of Senate Bill AB 266. I can see the positive impact that this will make in our newcomers' life. Our language access coordinator will start on February 5th. I will be sending an invitation for a work meeting between her, the rest of our ONA team, and the sponsor of the bill. I truly believe in the power of collaboration and would love to hear from you the expectations about these programs to make sure that my office delivers the best results for our community. ONA was created by Senate Bill 588 with the mission of promoting inclusion and integration of immigrants, refugees, and aspiring Americans into the civic, economic, and cultural life in Nevada. Moreover, the Governor's Office for New Americans is and will be dedicated to identifying gaps in our local and state agencies' programs and services in order to provide our newcomers with workforce development opportunities, education opportunities, and with resources for English language classes, support for refugee resettlement, and more. I also want to introduce our senior advisor, Vincent Nava. As of now, it's just the two of us, the team of ONA. As I say, we will be welcoming the language access coordinator. She starts on February 5th, and we have a vacant in our office for the administrative assistant. This is a little bit of the population that we serve. Sorry, I cannot see. As well as the issues covered by ONA. We work closely with the refugee resettlement agencies. We focus on continuing education, community engagement, workforce development, and language access. In the last 4 months, we have served 78 constituents. We also are working on the bill's implementation, Senate Bill 222, ONA, alongside the Nevada Office of Minority Health and Equity, the Nevada Commission of Minority Affairs, and the collaboration of Senator Melanie Schauble, who is the sponsor of this bill, we created and presented the 2023 Diversity and Inclusion Liaison Report. It can be found on our website. And we're also working in Assembly Bill 266. We provided already the agencies, cities, and counties with the documents that contains overall guidelines and timelines for the implementation of the Language Access Plan. Our advisor, Vincent Nava, is the liaison for these two implementation bills, and will be delivering the details on it after my presentation. In the last 4 months, ONA have been and continue working with our partners, community partners, and these are all some of the work that we have done with them. ONA participated in the Immigrant Career Summit alongside with Nevada State College, College of Southern Nevada, UNR, Consulate of Mexico, ACDC, Plan Nevada, Make the Road Nevada, and the African Diaspora of Las Vegas. We also participated providing a Zoom class for the Consulate of Mexico about the professional licenses available in the state of Nevada. We aimed to break down all the bureaucratic barriers that are involved with the occupational licenses. We also met with the Consulate of El Salvador, the second largest Hispanic population in the state of Nevada. We heard the challenges and continuously provide assistance with cases affecting the population she represents. We work with the building trades unions. ONA had the opportunity to participate in the career fair. Builders Association. With the Builders Association, we have identified the needs for workers and the gap when it comes to information about the different work permits and the connection between the employers and the immigration community. That is a big gap. ONA will organize a meeting between the Builders Association representative and the resettlement agencies. I have advocated for refugees to be hired within the different builders organizations. With the University of Reno, I have the opportunity to meet with the Latino Research Government Relationships Department and members of the Multicultural Center. We will be collaborating with them to address existing barriers related to foreign equivalency certifications in the state of Nevada. With UNLV, we met with the Immigration Clinic, and we are committed to collaborate with them. They also help ONA with different constituent services. With Global High School, I have the amazing opportunity to speak with the principal, and I actually have the opportunity to speak with the immigrant students. I have compromised my time to participate in mentorship opportunities. And we have identified some challenges that hopefully we can put together and bring to the next session. For you guys to have an idea of one of the biggest challenges that they face right now, their space is, the occupancy is 243 students, and they received 1,200 applications for enrollments. I also met with the CCSD Family Support Center. We have a work meeting with the director, Director Flores and Ms. Rodriguez from Newcomers Support and Integration Services. We learned about the various programs they offer. We identified that one of the significant challenges then these children face is they are not able to enroll in extracurricular activities when it comes to sports because of the lack of health insurance. With United Way, We have an ongoing participation on language access cross-sector working group. Las Vegas Chamber, ONA will be part of their initiative to create a website where all Nevadans can find workforce development opportunities. There's just some rich efforts. We have broken ground and established new relationships with populations such as from the countries of Thailand, the Philippines, Ecuador, and Nicaragua. We're also collaborating actively with the state agencies. The DMV, we are going to hold the first week of February, we're going to have a work meeting between ONA, the Refugee Resettlement Agencies, and the DMV team. We're going to go over different documents that refugees from certain countries use as for identification. And we aim to alleviate the process of obtaining a driver's license in the state of Nevada. With WHSS, we held a work meeting, and we are learning about the different programs, and we have identified the challenges that the immigrant community have when they require their services. And we are going to be collaborating with them on board license pathway for foreign trained individuals, as well as launching of train to hire cohorts with an immersive ESL module and community outreach efforts. One of their biggest concerns is that the immigrant population is afraid sometimes to come to them and require certain services because they think that they are going to lose their work permits if they require their services. And with GOED, specifically with the Office of Entrepreneurship, ONA will be participating in the cross-regional dialogue on January 31st. We will review local priorities, set strategic goals, and determine necessary resources to successfully face new business opportunities and challenges. I also want to share with you the ongoing collaboration with the federal agencies. We are now participating in naturalization ceremonies where ONA will be providing information about our office to the newest citizens. ONA is now receiving the updates from USCIS and DH directly now and not through third parties anymore. DHS, we participated in the first ever online statistical dashboard hosted by the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration, and Customs Enforcement. We also participated in Nevada Business Roundtable on Immigration. It was organized by the Latin Chamber of Commerce and the State Business Executive. ONA, along with Congresswoman Dina Titus, Office of Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, and the Builders Association and others, discussed and advocate for solutions for our nation's immigration system, especially when it comes to work permits for asylum seekers. And for those ones that aren't aware of what I'm talking about is then when the asylee comes to the country, they cannot apply for a work permit until 150 days after they apply for the asylum, which it creates a big gap. What is these people going to do during 6 months without being able to work? So we were discussing some opportunities, hopefully, in the state for these people. With the Office of Congresswoman Dina Titus, we have the pleasure of having the visit of the Intercenter office and the other immigrants, and ONA works very closely with her office on constituent services cases. Also, ONA also works with the offices of Senator Catherine Cortez Masto and Senator Jackie Rosen and Congresswoman Susie Lee. We appreciate the prompt responses we receive from their team when we reach out with our constituent issues. And now ONA has a relationship with the office of Congressman Mark Amodei. I am very happy to announce that we now have great partnerships, and we will continue to look for more. Right now, ONA has a partnership with Las Vegas Police Department. We advocate for awareness regarding the increasing cases of mental health and domestic violence among immigrants. This, most of the times, comes from their so-called sponsors and or family members. I had the opportunity to share my personal experience on this regard. The primary objective of our group is to engage with the community, fostering discussions not only about the law, but also about the rights. We aim to break those barriers that currently exist between newcomers and law enforcement, as well as the government. We will have an event on January 25th. You can find the information about the event in our social media. We are anticipating the participation of 2,000 community members. We also have a partnership now with the Libre Initiative. And we will be providing ESL classes and citizenship test preparation classes at no cost for our community. And we will start that program on spring of this year. We also have a partnership with Latin Chamber of Commerce Nevada. We're taking an active role in community outreach programs and roundtable discussions organized by the Latin Chamber of Nevada. These engagements, we focus on addressing opportunities for the Hispanic population, especially in the areas of entrepreneurship, workforce development, and education. Lastly, I want to share with you our Refugee Resettlement Agency's collaboration. ONA collaborates closely with the refugee resettlement agencies in both northern and southern Nevada. Additionally, we work in partnerships with organizations that offer legal services and empower refugees by promoting self-sufficiency and encourage personal growth. Some of our partners are Legal Aid of Southern Nevada, Lighthouse Charities, and Catholic Charities of Northern Nevada. Our active involvement extends to participating in refugee resettlement quarterly consultations. During a recent session, several key organizations were present, including Catholic Charities of Southern Nevada, ECDC, African Community Center, Northern Nevada International Center, the Office of Senator Cortez Masto, and Congressman Amodei, as well as Nevada Health Equity Program, Nevada TV Controller, and Nevada Department of Health and Human Services, of Division of Welfare and Support Services, among others. These collaborative, sorry, English is not my first language. I'm doing my best, I promise. Effort underscores our commitment to supporting and addressing the needs of refugees in the community. Please reach out to us. We are ready to collaborate with you guys. Thank you.
And good afternoon. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much for this invitation and for the opportunity of being here. I'm going to be speaking on the second half of today's presentation, which is going to talk about language access and implementation. We're just going to go ahead and change the slide up here. Just give us a quick second. All right, thank you. So this presentation is going to have a little bit of overlap too with Mr. McDonald had presented already, but it's also going to extend and talk about the implementation work that we've done here at the Office for New Americans in relation to the legislative bills that we have been a part of in terms of language access. Next slide, please. The first bill is Senate Bill 318, passed in the 2021 legislative session. No, that's good. Senate Bill 318 provides the head of each agency and executive department should designate one or more employees of the agency to be responsible for developing, biannually revising the language access plan for the agency. So first off, I just want to thank Senator Doñate, as this bill was very timely and it was very important. It was during the pandemic, and we needed to help bridge some of the gaps that existed between getting the information out as information was changing, as it was very rapid. So it came very, very important. Additionally, these language access plans that we keep talking and referring to about are kind of like a guide for each state agency to be able to see the needs that it has and try to help fill in some of the gaps. So these language access plans are extremely important because it allows state agencies to be reflective on the work that needs to be done and how we're going to be able to get there. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned about bridging the gap, Senate Bill 318 was crucial. It was paramount. Because as we look at the limited English proficient population that's part of Nevada, it's about 300,000 individuals, or close to 1 in 10 Nevadans. This is from the 2020 census data from Migration Policy Institute. That being said, a great portion of these LEP individuals are of immigrant background. And this is where we saw some of the need for us to be able to step up and be able to help with this bill. And not forgetting to mention and not leaving out Nevadans with disabilities, just because, as well as helping bridge the gap with the deaf, hard of hearing, and visually impaired communities, because we need to ensure accessibility for all here in this state. Next slide, please. This is why our Office for New Americans, without being named, we stepped up in late 2021, early 2022, and kicked off the initiative of the Nevada Initiative for Language Access, also known as NILA. NILA is aimed to create a central point of contact and a clearinghouse of information of resources and language access issues in the state of Nevada. What that means is we took it upon ourselves to try to do something about language access, make it across the board, make it systemic, and especially since the fact that this bill passed, we received the wind under our wings to be able to carry out some of the work. Next slide, please. But we didn't do this work alone. We did it through collaboration. We're really thankful for the State Innovation Fund that we received. And this fund, we were able to work alongside Northern Nevada International Center, Language Access Banks Division, which, as Iris mentioned too, the Refugee Resettlement Agency, and they're the only refugee resettlement agency in Northern Nevada. And we're just really thankful they specialize also in language access. Additionally, we brought in the experts. So we partnered up with the National Center for Interpretation, or NIC, from the University of Arizona. They were crucial in helping us implement and develop these language access plans. Next slide, please. So how did they help? They helped some of our NILA's goals and accomplishments, and these are some of the goals and accomplishments that we as an office were able to accomplish and carry forward with Senate Bill 318. First off, we developed and created a language access template and a language access toolkit. This is paramount because every single state agency has different needs that need to be tailored to the population that they serve. For instance, the Department of Wildlife might have a different constituency group, smaller group, as compared to the DMV, which is much broader, serves the whole state. With that, we created the toolkit and the template. This provided a blueprint and a guide, because we figured if the state agencies need to create a language access plan, sometimes it's kind of hard to see where to start. So we created this toolkit in order for them to guide them through the process and of how to create it. Additionally, we went and set out trainings, because we know that trainings is paramount in order for us to be able to create, for agencies to be able to understand what does it mean to create a language access plan and how to also implement it. And then lastly, we created a centralized hub of information. This hub of information is very paramount. If you look at our website, we collected all of the language access plans that were developed in the 2021, 2 years ago, and they're all up there for public use, for public awareness that they exist, and at the same time helping state agencies revisit their plans, as we have to be able to revise these plans biannually. In additionally, too, in the past, we've also collaborated with other states as well, too, in the creation of their language access plans, and as well as ours, in order to replicate good practices and ensure that they're carried out here in the state of Nevada. Next slide, please. So this is a community effort, and I cannot emphasize collaboration enough. And we're really thankful, too, to our partners, and specifically United Way of Southern Nevada, for bringing into the conversation. We sat down, we had a conversation, we talked about how there's like a high need to be able to address and bridge those gaps when it comes to language accessibility to government, and also to even the organizations that they serve and cater to. So we actually started the cross-sector language access group. And this cross-sector language access group, we meet on a monthly basis. We actually had a meeting, well, we were supposed to have a meeting today, but we're here right now presenting. So I'm pretty sure they'll let that one slide. But this partnership, it kicked off with the notion of bringing in the government, nonprofits, and members of the community to be able to be systemic and to be statewide when it comes to language access, because we thought about going above and beyond not just state agencies, but reaching out to the community and ensuring that these language access plans were sharing their information. So we shared out the toolkit, we shared out everything that we had at our disposal in order to aid in their development as well, too. And next slide, please. That concludes the end of Senate Bill 318, some highlights that we've done. And now we'll read on to Assembly Bill 480. Next slide, please. So Assembly Bill 480, we're extremely grateful to the legislature and to the governor for being able to pass this bill, because as Mr. McDonald mentioned, this bill is going to be able to fund these language access plans. So one thing is having a plan, where to go, a roadmap, but another thing is like, how are we going to be able to fund it? So by having $25 million, now state agencies during the fiscal year 2024-2025 are able to fund and implement these language access plans. And next slide, please. And as mentioned, we've seen the need for this funding. We have also informed state agencies too. If you look at the right-hand side of that bubble, is language access implementation plan legislative overview that we send out to state agencies, informing them of the policies that are taking place and how they can start thinking about them, as we're going to help them in guiding them through it. And additionally, we plan on providing support. So even though we're not specifically named in the bill, we understand that language access plans are funded through this bill, so we're going to help them and remind them of being able to secure this funding that is available to them in order to implement these plans. Next slide, please. And then this brings us to Assembly Bill 266. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the work and what it is. So first off, I cannot thank enough Assemblywoman Torres for being able to carry on this bill. As Mr. McDonald had already mentioned, this bill expands. So one thing is Senate Bill 318, it was very, very important, very crucial that during the pandemic, we need to get information out. We acted with state agencies. Now, Assembly Bill 266 just expanded upon that work that 318 has done by expanding it to the counties of Washoe, Clark, and the cities of 25,000 or more within there, which is City of Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Henderson, Reno, and Sparks. So again, we are really thankful for this. And this section here talks about the two sections, which is sections 2 and section 7. Sections 2 and section 7 is about public notice, ensuring that these cities and the counties provide information of a public notice within the language, within the voting language of that county. In Washoe County, it's Spanish and English. Clark County is Spanish, English, and Tagalog. And next slide, please. And then Assembly Bill 266, sections 3 and 6. This is where it mentions, directly mentions ONA in our office. And like I mentioned before, this is going to expand upon the language access plans to the cities and the counties. And we're really excited to even started conversations prior to the passage of this bill and ensuring that we can get this statewide and we can implement this across. And next slide, please. So our goals and objectives. So this bill carries out a lot of objectives and goals and responsibilities here within our office. And these bullet points are just to highlight some of these points that have already been touched upon and covered. And these are the goals and objectives that we aim to carry out within our office in terms of the implementation of AB 266 when it comes to Sections 3 and Section 6. So thank you. Next slide, please. And this is a timeline. So there is a timeline we wanted to be able to share on about previous events and also upcoming events. October 1st, the kickoff of the funding set off. October 25th, we sent out language access implementation plan and overview for the state agencies to be aware of. January 1st, and when we sent out the October 25th, we also informed them that the public notices will become effective January 1st as well too. And January 1st, public notices became effective. February 5th is the designated start date for a language access coordinator. February in 2024, we aim to meet with the bill sponsors and co-sponsors AB 266, or whoever wants to meet with us, in order to be able to work together to carry out the vision and the mission of the bill. March 2024, we aim to have trainings for the state, county, and roll out the toolkit and the template. April through June, the development period for the language access plans for the cities and the counties, along with the state agencies. And July 2024, public comment phase. Once you develop the language access plan, it does call for public comment phase. And within this comment phase, we're given a month to be able to collect feedback from the public. August 1st, all counties, cities, state agencies submit the language access plans to our office. And on September 30th, we'll go ahead and submit our report to the LCB, which in turn will submit it to members of the committee and all the members of the legislative. Next slide, please. So our vision. So these are the things that we're going to do. What our vision is for ONA to become a hub of language access for the state of Nevada. It needs to be statewide. It needs to be systemic in order for it to be able to work. We've noticed, actually, before we used to talk to the different states throughout the nation, it came to the no surprise that it needs to be coordinated by one entity instead of being decentralized and everybody doing different things. If we're able to all be on the same page in unison of what it means to have a language accessibility in the state, we've noticed that we've found the most success, and we aim to carry on that charge from as an office. Additionally, we will continuously work and revise and ensuring the services and the goals are met. This is not a one-job deal. We have to continue to, as it mandates, to revise these language access plans biannually. As there's changes taking place, populations differ, and we want to make sure that we're always on top of addressing the needs and helping serve the state agencies, the cities, and the counties that are involved. And last but not least, we want to work together and advance the vision of this bill forward. So we believe in collaboration. We want to be able to advance together with everyone, legislators, community, identities that are named in this bill. We believe that is the best way forward, and that's what we plan to do. And I believe that's the conclusion of my presentation, as the last slide is just our contact information. So thank you once again, members of the committee, for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any questions? And first, I'll ask Northern Nevada, are there any questions? And if someone could speak, even if there are no questions, because we don't get to see you otherwise.
No, I don't believe there are any questions up north. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Members, are there any questions here in Southern Nevada? Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question. So thank you again for the presentation. This is a very thorough presentation. Thank you for the work that the office is doing. My question is this. So, as we're going through all of this information over here, and this is good work that's being done, I had a question about undocumented immigrants. This is a major part of our immigrant community here. I myself, I've been very open about it in the last few years. Lived in this country without papers till I was 13 years old. So I was wondering if there's any outreach being done to that community, which is, I think, one of the most vulnerable, new American communities here. If there's any plan of action maybe moving forward to address those issues. Thank you.
Well, first,
Thank you. And sorry, as a reminder, don't forget to state your name for the record. Thank you.
my name is Iris Ramos Jones. Well, first, my when somebody calls to my office, we don't go through a questionnaire. We serve all Nevadans, period. And regarding the outreach, specifically for a community, can you please develop a little bit more about it? Because we are working on community outreach for the entire community. We don't segment people, and how do you find that out? I'm just, as I have shared here with you, I'm an immigrant, and I don't expect anybody to say, hey, hello, how are you? Hi, my name is Iris. I am this or that. We're just doing community outreach for the entire population, where we believe the immigrant community in general are.
Thank you, Madam Director, Madam Chair. My question really is about, because when you look at the immigrant communities, their official capacities, like the consulate, you have the different refugee agencies that work with new Americans who have a conduit there. But oftentimes, some of our undocumented communities don't have that. They've come here in a way that they're not present in many of the representative data. So I think it's sometimes incumbent to go to those communities, to have a specific action plan to engage those folks who oftentimes feel that it could be dangerous for them to speak out or to engage with the government entities.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that. And let me tell you, one of the challenges that I found in this office when I came 4 months ago is exactly that. It was the community outreach. And we're still addressing those issues, mainly because there is a limited awareness among the population about our office, or people have a misunderstanding about our office too. So that is why when I talked about community outreach with Metro, for example, Metro, the police serve everybody, every person in the community, and we are out there. The message is, we are here, please come. We are here to help you. As I say, we don't go through a questionnaire. If anybody can knock at our door or call us or email us, and we will serve every person. So we are doing community outreach. I don't know specifically when you talked about a community. As an immigrant, I don't know where to find them because I don't approach people by asking them their status. So again, we are serving the entire community, or that is our goal.
Go ahead, follow up.
Just one last follow-up, and this is it. I promise, Madam Chair. So I was moving forward. Would there be a way of maybe understand that there is an issue there, and that the Office of New Americans can maybe have some kind of plan of action to address those communities? I know that we can have the blanket approach where we just go into the community and bring people out, but there are, I think, pockets of groups of people, and I come across them all the time, as a member of the community, as a teacher, who are a little bit resistant to coming out. So we may have to go to them as opposed to bringing them to us. You see what I'm saying there, Director?
Please take me to your meetings next time. Invite, and I'm pleased to each one of the representatives here. I believe that you, more than anybody else, know your constituents, your people. So please invite us to be part of your programs and outreach community services.
Thank you. And just quickly to add on to that, Director, I think it's really important to note that, even I've had conversations with Metro, and, there's an undoubtable difference between undocumented immigrants not reporting crimes to Metro. And so it seems to me that should be at the core of the work that the Office of New Americans is doing, because we know that immigrant communities are significantly less likely to report domestic violence. Immigrant communities are significantly less likely to report assault. Immigrant communities are significantly less likely to report any type of crime that might occur against them. So it seems to me that should be at the core of the work, is making sure that we are finding, that we are reaching out to those communities and talking to them and letting them know that, they are safe here in Nevada and that they have access to resources. So I look forward to seeing that work.
On that, I am an immigrant, and when I came here, I did suffer domestic violence. I was afraid of calling the police. And in my case, it was because we, as an immigrant that comes from a country that unfortunately is very corrupt, and we do not believe in the police, we are afraid of calling the police. because whether it is what we're seeing now, whether it is because of the dependency of their spouses, or sometimes because they are afraid of losing custody of their child, or sometimes because they believe that if they reach out to the police or our office, they are going to be, you name it, deported or taken away, etc. That is why it is the partnership with Metro. It's something that I personally take it very seriously because, just like you say, I have lived it. I know that we, the immigrant community, are afraid to speak into the police and the government.
Thank you, and we look forward to seeing similar partnerships with undocumented groups and community members. Assemblymember Carter.
Thank you again for that report. And so my district is not far from here, East Las Vegas, 42% Latino. And my questions really center around how much freedom ONA is being given to do their job. You know, I worked on and got passed with a lot of help, AB 407, to protect all of us in general, but immigrants in particular from allowing the DMV to release personal data without due process. And we succeeded in getting that passed. And I haven't seen that promoted much. You know, you talked about how the fear of going to the DMV. I remember that distinctly, raising my sons in East Las Vegas, having the Latino children would have to leave to go pick up their parents from work because their parents were afraid to get a driver's license. We need to send the message that we're serious about it being safe. And also, I know this is a bit of a lecture here, but talking at the higher level of government, we have a situation here, and it's because I firmly believe of the lack of effective communication with the diverse communities on the east side, where the 93-95 corridor just got tagged and redesignated as the I-11 corridor. Rather than going around the city, we're stuffing more traffic through the urban core. We already, the east side, my district, has the worst air quality in southern Nevada, and now we're going to make it worse. And the excuse from DOT is, well, the people along the Beltway turned in the questionnaires about, we don't want that traffic along the Beltway, where it honestly belongs, but the communication between NDOT and the community over here was totally ineffective. And so that brings me to my question, and it centers around the leadership in the executive branch. You know, Governor Lombardo, when he was head of Metro, bragged about deporting 10,000 immigrants. He bragged about finding loopholes to deport immigrants. And he just recently was very publicly went on the news and bragged about supporting Trump, who is bragging about that he's going to have giant sweeps and wipe out neighborhoods like mine. And is ONA being supported and empowered to do the mission that the legislature created and supports ONA for?
Well, thank you for your comments and for your question. I have been in this office for only 4 months. Everything that you have seen now is what I and my team, and it's just for the last 3 weeks, I believe, it's just have been Vincent and I. And for the last 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks, it have been just me. I have been here, as I say, for 4 months. When I came to the office, I wrote up, I'm a businesswoman, I wrote a business plan, and I made a commitment of going out there with all the partners, and meeting with all the partners, with the community partners, with the different communities. And I did something that I called a listening tour, because my story and my experiences are only mine. I wanted to make sure that I heard more stories, that I was immersed in the immigrant community, because it's a big community. It's not only, I'm sorry, but I hate to say documented or undocumented. I don't like to categorize people in any way. But there is not only two categories. I wanted to make sure that I knew more about those other categories, the other type of documents, visas, hear stories, and make sure that I knew what we, ONA, were doing in the past in order for me to set realistic expectations and goals for my office. Regarding your specific question about your district, I'll be more than happy to have a follow-up meeting with you to address those specific issues. And regarding what you just addressed, regarding our governor, I think I am not power of responding to that question. Please refer to him directly. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. My main thing was asking is, are you being empowered and giving the autonomy to do the job properly?
What specifically you're talking about? I am the director of the office.
And I guess that what I'm getting at is, are you being given the freedom to truly do what the intent was to develop good communication with the immigrant community? And I'm only saying immigrant because I agree with you. And are you being allowed to do your job the way you believe it should be done?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Flores.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both for that presentation. And I will echo your comments that I've had an opportunity to see both of you at multiple events all throughout the states, and I really do appreciate your presence. You're a small but mighty team, all right? I feel like you both got to run for office. You're constantly campaigning, going from event to event. You're ready to run. And I do appreciate that. I sincerely mean that. And I appreciate your comments about documented and undocumented. You see it in these programs, refugee, resettlement. Status is so fluid. You're undocumented the day you get here. You soon apply for asylum. You got a work authorization within 6 months. All of a sudden, you're in asylum. You're a asylum seeker. As XYZ happens, all of a sudden, that's been approved. And then later down the road, you're a resident. So, and I say that for the record, just more or less to remind folk that are scared of like the undocumented word. That's just temporary for a lot of our folk. It's a very fluid reality that a lot of our folk live. I'm curious to know how the conversations are going with the local jurisdictions. I had a lot of one-on-ones with different state agencies, and particularly in a bill that I was working on, which was Senate Bill 373, I believe. But one of the things that I was trying to figure out was whether or not we can have access to federal money. My understanding from Title VI is if you're getting federal funding, you have a requirement to fulfill language access requirements, right, for vulnerable populations. So if a local jurisdiction is getting federal dollars, you need to be ensuring that vulnerable populations have access to those resources, whatever that programming may be. But one of the questions that I've had in private, but I just really do want to bring it to a public forum, is whether or not you have access to federal dollars when you're getting, specifically as a line item, when you're getting federal funding. And that's kind of where I've seen some pushback from some of our partners in the state, where there's a disconnect, and I don't know the exact answer to it, but is it happening in the rooms that you're in the conversations that you're having now? Because obviously everybody talks about money. Every single time we bring up translating a piece of paper, ensuring that somebody who may have some form of disability, it's not just what we vocally speak, right? There's so many different methods of communicating depending on what the necessity is for that vulnerable community. But I'm trying to understand, how deep are we getting into these conversations? Are the local jurisdictions engaging in that? Are we talking about getting money federally, not just putting that responsibility on the state? I just wanted to just get a bigger perspective of what's happening in these conversations.
Well, thank you for your question, and I also would like to have a discussion with you, a follow-up discussion. I don't have a top of my mind right now that specific topic. What I can tell you is that one of the beauty about our office is that we are allowed to receive grants in any type of fundings, and so if any of you come across to anybody that wants to offer some help or for any of our programs for the immigrant community, please bring us to the table because we would like to take advantage of that. And I took note of what you specifically say, and I will follow up with you on this regard.
Thank you. And I think it's just we weren't having those conversations for a long time, and I think COVID really brought some of the disparities and inequities within different communities. I think that's when we really realized we had one directive coming out on Monday, and then we were by directive 20 by that same day, and getting that information to the community was very difficult. But then we started realizing that a lot of this we should have been having access to capital before. But I would appreciate that. Yeah. So if I can work with you, whatever we have to do, I want to continue that conversation. The other thing is you, in one of your slides, Director, you mentioned that you've had an opportunity in the last 4 months to help, I believe, 78 folk, which is great, obviously. And I saw in that slide refugee resettlement, language access. There's a couple of things that ONA does, but I was just curious to learn more about how these 78 folk got to you, how are they directed to your office, and then what services you provided, just so we can get more of a in-depth.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we are serving right now is anybody that comes. Let me tell you, normally the people comes to ask for help to the governor's office. Okay, sometimes it comes directly to us. Sometimes it comes through the partners we have, the refugee resettlement partners that we have. Sometimes it comes from members of the community, and sometimes it comes from the governor's office. When a constituent with a citizen come and ask for help, and when it comes regarding to immigration or just to navigate the system, because that's what we're trying to help them with. Think of ONA like a connector. You know, when you come to this country, everything is new for you. You just don't know where to start. You don't know where to go grocery shopping. You don't know where to get a specific paperwork. You don't know anything. And that is what we want to be for that community. So then when they come to us, they can ask us literally for anything. We have the majority of the cases that we receive is cases with DMV, and that's why I told you them we will have a meeting very soon with the director of DMV and the refugee resettlement agencies. So that these agencies, and I have also invited to the consulates, so then they can show the DMV the different documents that people from these communities and these countries bring with them, so then they get familiarized with the documents. And we also have people that comes and needs help from the federal delegation. And what we do is, that's why I say that we work closely with them. We have a great communication with all the federal level offices, and they help us with the constituents. But that's mainly, as I say, the governor's office, community partners, refugee resettlement agencies.
Madam Chair, if I could bring up one last point. Thank you for this timeline. I thought that's very helpful to just understand what objectives we're trying to hit. Understanding that things happen, right? We all set, particularly in government, we set timelines and things don't always hit exactly as we plan, but I do appreciate that. I was curious to know what you see the role of ONA when working with state agencies and other local jurisdictions. Do you feel that the door is open to where they're taking direction and they're listening to ONA, and then they're working to implement? Or do you see them operating more of in a silo and then just kind of reporting back to what you're doing?
No, absolutely not. During the last 4 months, it have been actually very surprisingly, in a very good way, the great collaboration we have received from the different organizations within the state. And as I say, we're working closely with DMV, and one of the things that we are doing is identifying the gaps that there are. When I came on board, I wrote a series of programs that I wanted to develop. After meeting with the organizations, and after meeting with DITR, after meeting with DMV, after meeting with GOED, after meeting with different organizations, I found out that there are already great programs within the state that the immigrant community can take advantage of. So at this point, we are identifying those gaps, and ONA will aim to be that connector. Because, give you an example right now, I had a meeting with the Builders Association. They told me, Iris, we can hire right now 50,000 people. And I asked her, I told her first, I know where they are. The great skills are here. We immigrants come here with a different mindset. We are going to do what it takes because we know what it took for us to be here. So I told her, I'm going to introduce you with those people. And we are right now working on developing hopefully a pay program to bring those immigrants and provide them with workforce development opportunities. So to your question, my experience in the last 4 months working with the state agencies have been nothing but great. They are very receptive and they listen. We are bringing, every time I meet with them, I bring them the gaps that I am finding, and we are collaborating, yes.
And this is more of a comment, Director. I foresee, just with everything that's happening in Ecuador, after what you just mentioned, I know they're going through some really, really horrible turmoil out there.
Yes.
I suspect that we're going to start seeing a lot of folk from Ecuador making their way and hopefully resettling here, finding a new home. And we look forward to working with you there.
Thank you. It is all my family, each one of the members of my family are back home. So it's not an easy thing for us, and I understand that they are working right now to get the TPS. So when that comes along, yesterday we have a meeting with Catholic Churches of Northern Nevada, and I already requested a meeting with her. So then if that happens, she can please provide information to the Ecuadorian community about the TPS.
Thank you. And just quickly on that note, too, I hope that you're also working with AB 275 2019, which will help a lot of TPS recipients, especially given that it allows for them to have access to professional or occupational licensure using the education that they've already received, as long as they meet all the eligibility requirements. So that's another way for them to have economic opportunity. I know that ONA has been advocate in the past for helping people navigate the licensure process using AB 275. So I look forward to seeing that.
Can you repeat it for me again? AB 2?
AB 275 from 2019.
Okay.
Thank you. And I don't see any other questions from the members right now. Are there any questions up in Northern Nevada? Doesn't appear there are. So I'm going to go ahead and ask a couple questions regarding specifically AB 266 and the implementation of AB 266. I was proud to champion that piece of legislation during the 2023 legislative session. And so seeing its rollout is an important part, I believe, of the legislative process. And so one of the things, I've spoken to local governments that I think are starting to do the work on what they, and really figure out what they need to do. But, the rollout seems to be really late. The funding for the language access coordinator was made available on October 1st, but it seems to me that it looks like the role, it's not until early February that we're going to have a language access coordinator starting that work. So in that amount of time, the local governments are working under a very strict timeline. So can you explain why it has taken the Office of New Americans so long? And I understand that you assumed the role in September, but it seems to me that a 4-month hiring process is too long especially given that local governments are waiting on that information, waiting for those resources in order for them to do their job to the maximum capacity?
Thank you for the question, and I think Vincent can talk a little bit about the interactions that we are already having with the different local government, as well as we are actively working with them right now. It's not that ONA hasn't been doing any work. Regarding your question about the hiring process, it has been a surprise for me too. Since then, things take a little bit longer in the public sector than in the private sector. What I can guarantee you, Assemblywoman, is that we are going to deliver results, and we are going to deliver it by the deadline.
Thank you. And, just to clarify, it's not about delivering it by the deadline. It's about delivering it a month ago so that the local governments can get the information they need to you by the deadline. And so I am a little concerned about the rollout of that. When we asked the legislature to fund $250,000 for an agency, which was the request of ONA, for that money to not be even touched until then, I think it's just disappointing. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the work that the language access coordinator does, because you're right, a two-man team is too small. And so we funded a third person. And so, which really is going to be once the administrative assistant is replaced, right? And so I look forward to seeing this office move quickly to make sure that that rollout is done. Because my understanding from local governments is that there has been like a toolkit and things of that sort have been pretty minimal at this point. So what work have you done to engage with local governments and find out what their needs are throughout this process?
I look forward to meeting with you and understand better your expectations so that we can deliver the results. Vincent is the liaison and has been in charge of these specific bills, so he can probably deliver some comments.
Vincent Nava, VINCENT, NAVA for the record. Well, thank you for that question, Madam Chair. In terms of communication that we've had, it's just been the cross-sector language access group that we started meeting at the beginning of the year, or beginning of 2023. And as I mentioned before, we started meeting with them ahead of time, ahead of the rollout of AB 266, just because we wanted to ensure that there was work taking place in advancing language accessibility throughout the state of Nevada, even if it was local. And thankfully, even if it was like local community members, but thankfully too, government agencies also stepped in and were a part of that conversation. As soon as AB 266 was rolled out and released, we were really thankful for having that sector group that we meet once a month. So on a monthly basis, we just be meeting with them and updating them. And then we're just waiting for the hire that's going to take place in the next week and a half or so to carry out the bulk of the work and implementing it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to go to another part of the presentation, which was a discussion of the appropriation of $25 million to language access from the governor's office, which is only for fiscal year 2024 to 2025, which I find is odd. But given that it was passed and approved, can you... when we had the presentation from our staff earlier today, it was mentioned that only one agency has applied for a funding of $250,000. So what is the agency doing what is Office of New Americans doing to maximize information to state agencies and develop some support so that they know what to do to apply for these grants and that they have plans so that they can roll out? Because otherwise it's $25 million wasted.
In the month of October, we sent all the agencies this document, and it talks about the overview of the language access plan, as well as the requirements, responsibilities, and the timeline on the implementation. We have received, and Vincent has some information, we have already received from some government entities their feedback. We also had some questions that they had regarding a word specifically. And so, as I said, we have been working with them. It's a matter of hiring the person. I understand it had taken probably longer than we also wanted, but she is going to start on February 5th.
Thank you for that feedback. And just to be clear, though, the AB 480 has nothing to do with the language access coordinator because the language access coordinator was specifically to implement the duties that are rolled out by AB 266. So that there is nothing that impedes the office from fulfilling the goals of AB 480 and making sure that agencies are doing that outreach right now. So I just want to stress the importance of making sure these agencies are applying for this pot of money because there is the money available, and we have stressed the need for language access funding consistently, and part of the pushback from state agencies has consistently been that there is a lack of funds. And so with that being said, and this bill was restricted specifically to state agencies too, so our local governments that are actually creating plans, and I've talked to them, and many of them have been working on these plans diligently and could benefit from some of this money, but won't be able to. They will not be able to touch this money, and so I think it really is a responsibility of your office to make sure that this money is being used and that people are understanding how they can apply for these grants, because the 2024 year is going to be coming a lot quicker. I mean, it sounds like it's 5 months away, but it's really just around the corner, and we want to make sure that funding is maximized.
Sounds good.
At this time, member, are there any other additional questions here in Las Vegas or Northern Nevada? It doesn't appear there are any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and go to our next item on the agenda item 6, which is public comment. We're going to open it up for a second round. So if you are listening online and would like to provide public comment, please call 888-475-4499. Then enter the meeting ID 886-2753-6292 and press pound. First, I'll go ahead and invite anyone here in Las Vegas that would like to come and testify in public comment. Is there anyone in Carson City that would like to testify in public comment? BPS, is there anyone on the line that would like to testify in public comment?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
All right, thank you. And members, are there any additional comments before we adjourn? Councilman MacArthur, I know you're generally so chatty, so I'm surprised by your quiet nature today. Anything you wanted to say? Maybe a Happy New Year?
Madam Chair, what is it that you want me to make a comment that we need on the record?
This is your first time coming to one of these.
This is one of my first times coming to this, although I've been in the Assembly for quite a few sessions, but this is a new interim committee type thing that we're coming on, and this is one of my first times, yes.
And your favorite time?
Sometimes.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that this is Assemblyman MacArthur's favorite committee. So we appreciate that. It doesn't appear there's any additional comments from members. Members, if you do have any suggestions of things that you would like to look at during the interim, please feel free to send them my way or to Mr. McDonald or Ms. Rudy, and we'll take a look at that if you are interested in any specific topic for consideration. Finally, please note that our next meeting will be Thursday, February 2nd at 12:30 p.m. That concludes our business for today. We are adjourned. February 22nd at 12:30 p.m.